All right. This video is going to be Bitcoin. I'm excited about Bitcoin and talking about it because I've been watching it for a bunch of years now. I wrote this paper. I have it labeled anonymous just so people don't bother me. I'm going to read through it and tell you. I'm just going to wing it like I always do. So I'm glad it's in writing because it's a big concept to try to get out in one video. And I'll have a bunch of videos anyway. So here we go. Bitcoin is a difficult topic to understand, and I would like to simplify it as much as I possibly can for my readers. With that being said, please understand that this concept is not simple and may take a few years to settle clearly in your mind. I have spent over 2 years researching and learning about this emerging technology. Understanding the main difference between Bitcoin and all other forms of money is vital when making the decision on where to store your wealth. I am one of the most skeptical people when it comes to all concepts. I am shocked to see that Bitcoin has become such a resilient beast. The fear I am approaching certain of is that Bitcoin is not even an option, and the only real option is when you adopt it. It is truly our defenses toward the current system that keeps us from seeing Bitcoin is no longer in anyone's control. I would also ask that you do not associate any of this information with me. I currently have $0 in Bitcoin and am a sideline observer waiting to pounce myself. A quick side note on me is that I do not even have $1 to my name right now. I learned that the cost of clarity is through loss, not gain, and I lost it all. I now have clarity in what I call the dream, or life. My clarity comes from the obvious fact that I know nothing and will never know anything. This is the only true knowledge I will ever have. This absolute fact is what I share with everyone, and I am grateful for. This does not mean I cannot share my vision with, as all of us do. I am only sharing what I see and urge you to come see for yourself. Do not take my word for things, but try to disprove my vision. I choose to re-engage in the money game because I realize it is about patterns, not earning. Bitcoin has no marketing team or conferences. It is a lone wolf that is grabbing the attention all around the globe. I consider it Revenge of the Nerds, and they have released a network that has millions of dollars in energy costs being pumped into the production of our first actual scarce asset. This asset can be divided into multiple millions of itself, and that is perfect considering we have over 7 billion people on this planet. The price of sound money and security is not cheap. This gets paid for slowly over time as the productions of coins take place. I always try my best to speak through the eyes of a worldview. I feel it is time we stop fighting each other for the bottom 5% of inflating dollars. We can wake up to the immutable technology that will disrupt the global imbalance of wealth. Earth currently has almost 4 billion unbanked humans, and they would prefer a trustworthy medium of exchange. Please attempt to read this as if you are seeing through the lens of a worldview. Bitcoin may appear like a get-rich scheme, but if you engage your energy into learning about it, you will be shocked at how well it opens the mind to possibility. Money has a tendency to make us all panicked and nervous. The reason I felt this panic was because I believed it to be real and true. I know now that it is a fiction we all play along with. Personal responsibility. One of the most important details about Bitcoin is that it's on each individual to be responsible for it, understanding it, using it, and storing it correctly. No organization has been built to help you do this, and it is on the individual who must take responsibility for their own life and make the best decisions going forward. My goal is to help you transition out of dependency on government money and enter into a decentralized form of money that not only sustains value but increases in value as you use it as a savings account. Bitcoin and fiat currencies trade against one another on the open market. Over time, as the dust settles in our mind, the currency wars will take place on the free market, and the best one or few will win. Money will become what our minds focus on, and the weaker currencies will naturally lose the trust they once had. One of the hardest things for the working class to do is safely store their wealth, and it usually ends badly through the roundabout ways we are conned into preserving our money. Inflation is the slyest way the owners of the printing press can devalue your savings. Since money is entangled within a large majority of our thoughts, we should not expect to make this transition in a day, a week, or even a year. I would encourage you to take your time in understanding it and realizing that any negative, fear-based reaction to it is just part of this uncomfortable transition. So basically we have government fiat money, and then we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin is unlike all the other currencies because it's deflationary. It cannot be, the money supply cannot be increased, and all of the Bitcoins will be mined by the year 2040. So the reason that it's deflationary is because it operates on thousands of nodes around the globe that are verifying the transactions. So it's 100% verification and 0% trust. The issue of the other coins and the other fiat currencies compared to Bitcoin basically revolve around this. I'll talk about that when I catch up to it. I'll just keep reading for now so I don't go on a tangent. I pretty much did pretty good with the writing, so I'll just add in when I see I need to add in. The news. I see people placing so much trust in the news, and I have to ask why. The news is a business, and they are paid like every other business. I realized that the news was not in any viewer's best interest, and I had no reason to help anyone understand Bitcoin except for their own money-making agenda. Negative news seems to sell better than any positive news. We have a desire to chase connection as humans, and it appears negativity is the latest connection. The news has slowly turned into a monopoly that is spreading fear in all directions. We want to fuel our heads and trust in the television, and our trust in the television is dying out, especially for the youngsters. I feel in relation to Bitcoin, the news is mostly speculation placed in the public's minds at incorrect time frames in order to get the viewers to put their money in at an overvalued price point. The opposite happens when Bitcoin is at a lower price, as they will spread any fear that will prevent the viewers from purchasing it. In simple terms, trade your money opposite of the news unless it's in a parabolic uptrend. The news is not your friend, and they do not care about you at all. The main goal of the news is to hold your attention by spreading the latest topic of fear with clever, manipulative wordplay. The thing that interested me most about Bitcoin is how a few key points set it apart from every other form of money. Everyone seemed to hold a different opinion on this new age digital currency, and most actively avoid it as a topic of conversation altogether. The news seemed to spread every vantage point in half-written, jumbled, and confusing articles. I now stress that our individual opinion does not matter. Confusion seems to be the name of the game for the news, and this makes sense because they prefer the masses' minds are confused. The frantic mind will make irrational decisions and lose confidence in their own filters of judgment. I want you to gain clarity before investing your wealth into anything. I speak all of this with clarity myself because I rode the emotional roller coaster that comes with trying to see clearly. The piece of clarity I urge anyone to see is that this beast called Bitcoin is unstoppable. The saying used in the community is, "The genie is out of the bottle." Since I saw that the news was not working with my investigation on Bitcoin, I found better resources. This was not easy, but navigating the internet for accuracy is a fun game if you are patient. Bitcoin is a direct attack on the financial system, and they are aware of it. Rest assured, the Federal Reserve, government, and central banks are buying Bitcoins. Think of them all as actors on the stage of life, and they systematically fool the audience. We all have varying degrees of heart, empathy, and sympathy. This is not a bad thing, as it creates the obvious balance of vantage points for the whole. Any news on Bitcoin has had a positive response on the price. All publicity is good publicity for Bitcoin. The Silk Road incident in 2013 drove the price down initially, but within months the price bounced back and rose 10 times in value. The same thing happened when China tried to outlaw in 2017. The price dropped in a day from 5,000 to 3,000, but rose directly up to 20,000 in a few months. Our ability to independently research is far easier with the internet. The resources I found come directly from people that have been involved in the space for at least 5 years and are working for any are not working for any payment from a centralized organization. I dug as deep as possible and siphoned through as much bullshit as possible in order to get to the cold, hard, undeniable facts about Bitcoin. Timing issues. It is important to understand the effects it will have if you push learning about Bitcoin aside for a decade or so, because it is easier than processing the information now. Bitcoin has only been around for 9 years and has grown to be the largest network of computing power worldwide. The verification of transactions also requires maintaining this network, and it comes with a cost. Currently, the cost of power for our area would be around $10,000 to produce a Bitcoin. Part of being an adult is taking responsibility for your own life and realizing no one is looking out for your best interest but yourself. Thinking independently is something very few have done because it involves a drastic degree of skeptical thought. This is a focus that gets turned inward instead of seeking outward authority or approval. And I'm speaking basically of government money and the workings of government money, and it's a disguised form of slavery. They're controlling the money supply, and they're controlling the distribution of that money supply. And if you're not doing what you're told and following the guidelines they put out, they will not give you that money, that newly printed money supply. Bitcoin essentially makes individuals the bank because they choose to use it as a store of value, and as it slowly wins over time, you will have the king form of money that will be on individuals to distribute for actual production. I encourage you to take this skeptical thought as far as you can with Bitcoin, but do it honestly or you will believe something that is simply not there. The irony of this endeavor is that most extreme skeptics of Bitcoin eventually have to hang their head and tip their hat at its ability to power through every human attack. Remain patient and process as much information as you can before transferring your money. Concept of money. Money is a concept. That's what people don't grasp. I mean, they've been chasing it so hard and they've been so attached to it for so long, they don't realize it's just an idea in our heads. We have all become government slaves, and it's just gotten completely out of hand, and so few are actually even engaged in the system or able to get into the system to get their hands on this newly printed money. And it's just become hard to even look at or be a part of, because all the biggest corporations are winning out. They're constantly adding new laws, regulations for everything. It's extremely hard to even open or run a small business. I think the American dream is dead. I don't think it's actually even there. I don't think it's an option. The competition's too high. The amount of jobs are going to be decreasing. We're in a completely revolutionary time, and waking up to that quickly is going to be way better for the long run for anybody than pretending this isn't happening. So money is a concept and always has been. Our egos are designed to defend our lives and our money. This energetic defense creates a clouded lens over reality as a whole. So when we get receiving thought from the mind, it goes through our filters of belief. And if those filters of belief aren't accurate, because we're entertaining fear instead of clear vision and clear seeing, then we're going to continue to allow our old way of thinking to take over and pretend that it's still working when it's not, if you just let down that energetic shield of thought and emotion. Seeing through this dark cloud that has been created takes focus and intent. We are trying our best not to be caught like a deer in the headlights when these shifts in the financial markets start to happen. Try not to get overly excited about Bitcoin and place more money in it than your risk tolerance can handle. This market appears to have drastic ups and downs, but the reality is the substantial growth over the long term. Getting overextended and caught up in the short-term volatility will become very stressful. So, essentially, people learn about Bitcoin, they get excited about it. I'm guilty of it, and they basically go all in at a certain price point, or they get overextended at a certain price point. And Bitcoin has 90-80% pullbacks that have 100% of the time been recovered. And there's no reason for that to stop unless something in the market or something within the tech would fail, which doesn't appear to be happening. It's very slow growth. The key part is the 1 megabyte blocks, which allow it to be run on a personal computer to run the nodes. And since those blocks aren't increasing in size, it can remain that way. All these other altcoins are making larger block sizes, meaning they need fewer nodes or like supercomputers to run them. And since it's only a few supercomputers running these nodes, these super nodes, it's centralized in that there's so few people that are running the verification of it, changing the code and altering it, inflating the money supply becomes possible, making it a useless currency and a waste of computing power and energy. And that's every single altcoin at the moment. Bitcoin is the best. There's not going to be anything that's going to come along and beat it. It's extremely simple, and everybody that is running these altcoin scams is trying to attach their name to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's getting its dominance back, and my guess is by the end of this year it'll be over 80%, because people are waking up to that, and there's just a lot less action on these altcoins. And then we also have like Fidelity and JP Morgan and all sorts of companies trying to attach to Bitcoin as well. Bitcoin stands alone. It doesn't need any of these companies. They're all scamming. They're all just trying to get a piece of Bitcoin's action. Bitcoin runs perfectly by itself. And that's what makes it awesome. It works off of verification. It does not work off of trust. Any of these companies attaching to Bitcoin, they're trying to get your money and your Bitcoin out of your hands instead of you holding it on your own. You don't need them. That's the beauty of this money. Take the process slowly and patiently. There's absolutely no shame in admitting you do not know anything about it and are new to the game. You now have a chance to be in charge of your money for the first time in all of history. This is scary for any human being that has been dependent on the banks and all other trusted outside authority. I mean, let's face it, guys, we've been slaves to the government, and it's only increased as time continues to go on. We've been sold a system from the generation above us that is dying out. We have to be honest with them and tell them that we believe they tried their best, but you know the game's kind of over at this point. Bitcoin's going to crush and win over the long term, and the government and the banks are going to have to integrate with Bitcoin, and I believe it'll be a natural integration that'll take place over the next couple decades. There's really no stopping it now. The only way for change to happen is for new ideas to be implemented. Bitcoin was implemented and it snuck through the cracks. It is similar to a baby being born in the jungle and surviving. It is done, and our job is to integrate with it. The current trajectory of government money is headed for a very painful economic bubble, and storing our wealth in the most secure way is something we should not overlook. This does not mean the markets will not go up in the near future, and I would agree they are likely to go up, as this is how bubbles expand until popped. Projecting all of these things forward and including this incredibly high loss of unemployment due to advances in technology, I see all of the things knocking the base out of this pyramid of debt. Essentially, this form of government slavery we're under, it's just a pyramid of debt owed to the Federal Reserve. It's, I mean, sure, they may have the weapons, but are they really going to use the weapons? If that's the case, then it really doesn't much matter, because we'll be dead. It's time that we stop being scared of government and realize, you know, the power's in our own minds to wake up individually, one by one, and help each other and communicate and allow money to flow naturally, instead of this pyramid of greed we're watching. There's a natural pacing to things, and seeing clearly is always going to be more valuable than saving government dollars. The exit strategy from this obtuse pyramid scheme we have been living in is Bitcoin. The transfer of dollars into something as sound as Bitcoin will only increase the speed of the necessary economic recession. So essentially, as dollars get transitioned into Bitcoin, that's going to speed up recession. That's going to speed up the killing off of all this unnecessary nonsense that government created. Life finds a way to humble us when we get so wrapped up in a lie that we believe is true. This entire thing, this entire Ponzi scheme has been a lie our whole lives. We don't need to continue to entertain it. It's not helping us as a whole. It's driving us apart. It's driving families apart. It's just brutal. It needs brought into the light. It needs put onto paper. It needs talked about, like every fear that we're uncomfortable with and deny. Deflationary. Inflation is the slow way central banks and governments steal wealth from the workers. We are told the inflation rate is around 3%, but it is actually around 10% a year. When they calculate the inflation rate, they're not calculating everything. They're only calculating portions. Storing wealth in a bank is a dangerous gamble over time. The cycle usually ends in hyperinflation, which is at least a 50% increase in the money supply over the course of a month or less. This drastic inflation is happening in many countries in South America currently. Venezuela is a guinea pig for us all to empathize with as much as we can. If you want to see through the world's eyes, you got to engage empathy. It's a useful tool for vision. Realizing there's no separation between you and anything else is how empathy operates, and it grows and grows, and it's addicting to see clearly that we've been pretending to have this illusion of control that we simply don't, and we've been delusionally convincing ourselves we're entitled to money because we've been given the thoughts and emotions that allow that money to fall into our existence where other people have not. From my eyes, it appears everyone is playing their role perfectly and everything's running perfectly. To say that someone did something wrong or see wrongness, period, is what keeps this human drama going. We need to stop seeing wrongness where it's simply not there. My speculation has the recession happening after President Trump sacrifices the US dollar to move the markets up and secure his second term. This appears to be his main squeeze right now. He wants that second term, and he'll do whatever he can to get these markets pumping. 2 to 5 years, if I am forced to guess, is about how long until the recession actually starts to take place. I do not attribute this speculation to much other than the fast means of communication taking place. We are rapidly spreading information as a whole, and many individuals are trying to get to the facts. Young people on the internet, I mean, they are buried in their phone, and they're buried in pictures and context and sharing information. I mean, everyone's waking up that is basically a part of the internet. So if you're still just watching television or staring at the wall, you're probably falling way behind when it comes to this, seeing, through a worldview. This is what I refer to as waking up. The natural way many people appear to be blasting through these artificial walls. Every line drawn in our head is artificial. It segregates us from the world, and we don't need those walls of nonsense of segregation. I mean, national borders, states, governments. I mean, the whole game. It's ridiculous. It needs to. We need to let go. Bitcoin is a global form of money, and that will force us to zoom out to understand it. Bitcoin is a deflationary form of money, and its operation is immutable. The reason it's immutable is because, as I stated before, the nodes and the 1 megabyte blocks, that is what sets it apart. That is what makes it immutable. And Satoshi remaining anonymous, and Bitcoin has the longevity the other coins do not. Bitcoin is the only thing you should be paying attention to. If you're investing your money in these other Ponzi schemes, then you're going to get wrecked. It's just the way it is. Stop believing marketing gimmick material. Start following your own mind to what's actually happening. The US dollar is likely to win over the other fiat currencies, but that does not mean it will win over Bitcoin. Bitcoin is immutable and unconfiscatable. No single individual or group of individuals can change or alter its operation. No one can take your money, and it is now 100% your responsibility. This is what Bitcoin offers to you. Unconfiscatable. Government can't come and take your Bitcoin. Government can't garnish your paychecks. Government is in total control of your money currently. I mean, your choice is to stay in this system or exit the system. If you're in it, play your role within it, knowing that you're eventually exiting. I don't know what to tell anybody. This technology can't be stopped, and the masses are exiting government. Government has this illusion of money currently. They have this illusion of power currently. It's not going to be there forever. And I don't think it's bad people. It's just misinformed. It's just a shitty human drama at the moment. It's a terrible sitcom. Remove the hero-villain victim mentality and wake up yourself. Take some serious time to think about this. It is bigger than all of us, and we must pay attention to all the details. This is one large example of how we will integrate with artificial intelligence. Bitcoin is not a human organization we choose to trust. It is a technology we cannot stop. This is where I bring in the illusion of choice and how Bitcoin is not a choice at all. I am intentionally making Bitcoin sound like a threat because it is a serious threat, and the likelihood of it failing or being stopped is very low. Since no one is in charge of Bitcoin or speaks for it directly, humanity is confused by it. Society is incredibly addicted to the buyer-seller dynamic, and Bitcoin requires no such sales pitch. Humans, because they can pick a side or pick a vantage point, are to the point where they feel like they have to. You're allowed to see both vantage points and not pick sides, not even make decisions. Just observe and realize you are just the awareness of the whole. And if you do want to play a segregated actor role, then be careful, because you're building an illusion of selfhood that's walling you off from reality. It's just the way the human brain and the mind and the entire game operates. The brain doesn't comprehend infinite. It has trouble seeing multiple vantage points. That access to memory management and everything within your mind comes from surrender, not from grabbing hold of the illusion of control. It's awkward, but it's in the opposite direction than we've been taught to go. It's surrender instead of control. I mean, it's the core teaching of every religion. One individual doing the mental work required will eventually tip the scale toward a less Orwellian future. I mean, we are living in 1984 right now. If you don't see it, open your eyes to it. So what if you're just one of the people, that's winning the Ponzi scheme at the moment? There's a bigger game being played. And if you don't make the efforts, I mean, I don't know. Long-term saving. The forces cannot confiscate your Bitcoin. This is the most important function of Bitcoin, and it should be a relief for all of us. Bitcoin is held in our brains, and there is no other way than violence for someone to get your Bitcoin. A private key and password protect anyone from stealing it. It works kind of like an email address. Your private key is a sequence of about 30 words, and then you also have a password to access your Bitcoin. And you have to store it on a hard wallet, and either memorize your private key or write it where nobody knows it, and don't give it to anyone that you don't trust, obviously. If you take an honest look at your current wealth and where it is stored, you will see that it can be manipulated to a lower value or stolen altogether. We have this trust. I mean, we're built to trust. We should trust in the world and the universe and things. But if you're trusting humans that are chock full of delusion, it's a little bit different than trusting consciousness without those filters. So be careful of what you're trusting. They're in control of your money. I mean, don't kid yourself. Otherwise, when push comes to shove, they will take it. Bitcoin is also the safest way to store your wealth. Hacking is happening on exchanges and all other operations, including banking. Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, Bitcoin is the most secure network possible. It's not totally immune to hacking. I mean, that's how hacking is, but it's the best. And who knows what the future has in store for banking situations when it comes to hacking. Many selfless coders have sacrificed their time and mental energy to keep the operation secure. Bitcoin will encourage savings for future generations and will more than likely win over all other forms of money in the long run. So I do a section here on anxiety. Anxiety is basically when your fight or flight response kicks in, when discomfort kicks in. The only way to handle discomfort is to dive into it, feel it fully, and be honest about it, and understand that it's fear. Fear trying to fool you. Emotion is fear, and it's always trying to fool you from lucid, rational, clear seeing. So money caused me a lot of anxiety, and breaking free of this circular and defensive confine took years. Humans like routine, and defending this routine to anyone that comes in and tries to alter it. This is actually what defines a human in my eyes. Resistant to change, or a clinger to outdated and dying ideas. The human drama is a portion of life, and it is losing its appeal for many. The generation of baby boomers tried to lead the millennials toward an outdated and dying system, and this creates a gap of communication. I think this government situation, government money situation, is what's tearing families apart. It's super sad that the older generation can't admit to it or see it, that they continue to cling to it and defend it. It's happening everywhere. It's happening within families, within friends. It's segregating us because we're fighting over the scraps of dollars. We're being conned into what we buy, what we eat, extremely conned into it through marketing. We got lazy and fat. I mean, that's what happened. We gotta make the effort to not be so pathetic. Information and technology are moving rapidly, and the majority of baby boomers are still trusting the television. I feel the older generation did what they felt was best for the time, but are aware of advancements that are eradicating the dictatorship of government control. We can lower our defenses and enter into an integrated life rather than a segregated life. This means when processing this new information, we must silence our energetic thought shields toward Bitcoin and find out what is actually going on. I notice people with money, with a lot of dollars, they just get this entitled smile or smirk or chuckle anytime Bitcoin's mentioned. And broke people are a lot more open to hearing. So, I mean, that's kind of the thought shield I'm talking about. Like, if your paycheck is dependent on government money, then you're defending government money. You're defending this system of greed. I don't know how to sugarcoat it. I mean, an entitled smirk isn't going to save you from this transition that will take place. Our tendency is to defer or point certain topics to other people and use trust in outside authority to tell us what is best. The issue with this is that humanity has been in a pattern of greed for centuries, and the pattern is not likely to stop or even slow. I think the greed and the pattern will bubble up. It's just how it is. It's what causes revolutions. It's what causes depressions. It's what causes recessions. The pattern can't stop unless we actually finally get a reliably 100% scarce asset that we can use as money, and we finally have that. It is my belief we're swimming in upstream technology. It's also my belief we're possibly living pre-recorded lives. It's not out of this world to understand that our human consciousness could be downloaded and uploaded in the next 40 years. It's very hard to see what the difference is between this reality and virtual reality, especially for youngsters and gamers and people that must access all parts of their mind to compete in whatever games they're competing in. When it comes to doing this, I encourage you to question who you are trusting and become as skeptical as you possibly can. This includes reading my information as well as anyone else's, and over time you will learn to filter information through yourself. This process will lead you to clarity that will remove your anxiety over money, but it does take time, effort, and brutal honesty. Anxiety is resistance to our futility, and there is no money in that definition. We are told depression and anxiety are bad, but that is because we are scared of something that is out of our control. We want self to have meaning. We want self to exist, but at the core of all of us, no self is true self, and everything surrounding this fear is a lie. I suffered from an awful case of anxiety, and I feel it only subtly now. I don't really feel anxiety or fear because I spent so much time looking at it, processing it, writing about it, saying it for what it is, and I no longer suffer from anxiety. I do get it when I enter a room full of very egocentric people, because it's just like it's a defensive shield to my words that I can feel, and it's hard to be in a room full of this kind of energy. So that's kind of when I feel it, but I'm getting better at it. So now that we realize we are embarking on a delayed gratification journey of understanding, we can finally bust through our own chains of defense. Pointing the finger at ourselves and to understand money and life is a step in the right direction. So basically, instead of pointing the finger outward and saying everyone's doing stuff wrong, we point the finger at ourselves and lower our shields of defense toward this system, toward this process of slavery we've been accustomed to for all these years. Bitcoin simply is, and waking up to what it is will eventually fix your brain full of deafening dissonance. Yeah, Bitcoin had my brain stirring for years. It's a great concept. It's like a ego-eating virus. It's a money attachment ego-eating virus, and it's a great tool to use to wake up. And when I say wake up, I mean become lucid. I mean, it's equivalent to like lucid dreaming. I mean, if we want to fly, we need to get rid of our baggage. And if we want our bodies and minds to feel light and work properly all day, you know, we got to get rid of our baggage and wake up. Beliefs are confines that filter out reality. Becoming an adult in this world means we must stop trying to force our beliefs to be true by finding others to validate them. This is how all these segregated groups of fear form. Confines are confines, and saying they are good or bad is a judgment. Judgment is the glue that holds all mental confines in place. So remove judgment, and these artificial walls of segregation in your mind will dissipate, evaporate, and you'll no longer need them as some kind of defense to your own life. Infinite consciousness is running our lives, and that's the way it's always been. And creating a segregated self, you're walling yourself off from infinite consciousness, which is easily synonymous with infinite intelligence. So opening your mind to the infinite and removing judgment is how you can become a very lucid human. An open mind that is able to communicate with all parts at any time is where the real power lies. If my belief that everyone is the center of their own universe, it is my belief that everyone is the center of their own universe. If we are believing any fiction, then we are walling off our own mind. This is the shield of fear so many of us refuse to release. Your brain will feel like it is being pulled in many directions, and what you once trusted will no longer be trusted. I can't sugarcoat it. You're gonna learn that you can't even trust yourself because you've been programmed and brainwashed into this government cult, basically. It may seem strange that this type of context is in a Bitcoin paper, but the writer of this had an extreme case of emotional attachment to money. Yeah, I mean, it was so bad. I kept chasing those dollars, and you know, it just you can't fill an infinite void, and that's basically what all of us are. And trying to fill it with money and material stuff, it doesn't work. I can only assume all of us are under the same sleep spell. Money is just a belief. This is a world of make-believe, and most people are make-believing it's not. Duality and denial cause anxiety, and they grow like a virus over time. So duality is basically make-believing. We're not all make-believing. So you're living in a segregated version of reality, duality. And denial is basically denial of the truth, the thing we're all terrified of. Truth exists, and once you realize truth exists, I mean, the new game becomes allowing it to take care of business. There is really only consciousness and energy in seeing the patterns within it. I mean, that's essentially IQ, pattern recognition. Separations and the illusion of intelligence. Separations in life are artificial and they do not serve vision as a whole. All context is false. That's a big statement, but it's really not that complicated if you take an honest look at it. Of course, all context is false. Context is just stories. Satoshi Nakamoto is an anonymous entity credited to the creator of Bitcoin. No one has determined who Satoshi is. Could be a man, a woman, or a group of people. Nakamoto wrote a 9-page white paper for Bitcoin in 2009 as a response to the 2008 financial crisis. There's a link here. Read the white paper over and over. It's very simple. Bitcoin isn't complicated. And it's running perfectly. It's never failed. It's faced every attack. It's never shut down. Satoshi Nakamoto owns around 1 million Bitcoins. Satoshi owning 7% of does not matter because Bitcoin has outgrown this amount. Satoshi could reveal himself and sell all of his Bitcoins. Bitcoin would lose a large amount of its market cap, but would remain running perfectly and undisturbed. Bitcoin is now larger than Satoshi, and since he has remained anonymous, built the only decentralized form of money, he surrendered his control over the network. Satoshi must have understood that remaining anonymous would be the strongest way for Bitcoin to become fully decentralized. It is possible that Satoshi is dead, and that would result in an increase in the scarcity. So almost 5 million coins have already been lost. Satoshi is 1 million if he's not dead. It's possible that his private key could get hacked. It's possible that the government has already hacked it and is in control of it. I mean, that's a lot of theory. But even if that were the case, it really wouldn't matter. And there's also possible he's dead and nobody gets it. Who knows? I mean, that would make a lot of sense as well. Decentralized definition: to distribute administrative powers or functions over a less concentrated area. So it basically brings the power back to the people. You know, it's what we all dream about. You know, it's scary because it's a new concept, but you know, we're allowed to be happy. We're allowed to enjoy life. We don't have to keep living in this misery. Bitcoin is decentralized. There is no central authority, and change can only happen if consensus alters the code together. This is beyond unlikely to happen because Bitcoin's strength grows with time, use, and production. Its wide distribution of network operators over hundreds of countries keeps it from being disrupted. All node operators talked about later must run the exact same guidelines for verifying transactions. Any alteration to the code will result in the transaction not getting verified and waste processing power. Nodes are run on personal computers because they only verify 1 megabyte of data. The many computers involved are working together to finalize the transaction between parties. The vital understanding of this decentralized network comes from seeing the amount of control our current centralized system has. This amount of financial freedom and potential is a difficult project, difficult for us to project. So I'm basically saying it's tough to project what's going to happen. I think it's going to be fine. I don't think there's that much evil in the world where it's going to get super, super messy. Obviously, bad things are going to happen, deaths are going to happen, suicides are going to happen. Same stuff, you know, like take care of your own mind, pay attention, keep going, keep trusting. Bitcoins cannot be printed out of thin air. They are mined by using large amounts of energy and computing power to create complex mathematical algorithms that verify the coin has been produced. Miners are supercomputers made specifically for this process. The difficulty rate is increased at a predetermined rate and is another vital part of Bitcoin's whole. So it's a really cool part of Bitcoin that the difficulty of mining a Bitcoin gets increased and the energy power to do that gets increased. systematically. Decentralized exchanges have not emerged yet, and this is only a portion of Bitcoin yet to become fully decentralized. We don't even need these. Bitcoin is directly peer-to-peer, but the current exchanges are not totally trustworthy, and government can come down on these exchanges and come down on these altcoins and ICOs, and this is basically the only fear I have left for Bitcoin failing, is all of this happening simultaneously, and driving the price of all the altcoins down, which will drive the price of Bitcoin down, which will have a lot of the miners shut off their mining operations and nodes as well. If that were to happen, then it's possible for Bitcoin to die. But because of the recent increase in price, most miners already capitalized on their gains for the year, and they'll keep their operation going. And most of them know what Bitcoin is and how important it is to keep the operation going. And there are mining operations that use very low energy costs as well to keep it all going as well. So it's not a major fear. It's maybe like a 2 to 5% fear I have. And this is really the only chance for Bitcoin to be stopped, is within the next literally 6 to 12 months. Yeah. So permissionless transfer, and the other thing with all the altcoins is their mining operations are going to have to shut down and fail. I mean, they're dying at a rapid rate. And I have a hunch, Bitcoin's dominance will come back and all this shit will get taken care of naturally. The actual community of Bitcoin people that are sharing information, understanding it's actually really small. And that leads me to believe that price is overly inflated through speculation. And I think another 6-month bear market is possible, with today's date being 6/28/2019 and Bitcoin around $12,000. I could see it possibly having up to an 80% pullback, or maybe even more. So just be aware of that. If you're dollar cost averaging in and buying it, that is a possibility. The recent buyers have to get punished. It's just the way markets operate. Unless the markets get driven up in the next months, the overall markets, then the speculation will continue, and it'll probably go for a bit of a double bubble at that point. Bitcoin could go to 100 grand, and these altcoins could continue to pump, and then everything will fizzle after that. The next halving for Bitcoin is in about exactly 1 year, and generally price rises up to the halving and after the halving. And this is a big halving because it'll surpass gold in the stock to flow ratio. And stock to flow ratio is the stock is the total reserve amount of the asset, and then the flow is the amount of new coming into it. And Bitcoin will have a lower stock to flow ratio than gold, and that will open the eyes of a lot of people, especially since Bitcoin's market cap's at 150 billion and gold is at 13 trillion. So there's a big separation there. And there's also it's been about a 1.5 year bear market, and Bitcoin's been doing nothing but crushing, and as price was going down. So there's a big divergence to take place there as well. So the possibility of price going up over the next couple years is very, very high. So learning about this sooner than later is going to be good. And buying into Bitcoin is complicated. You first want to acquire a HODL position where you hold on to your Bitcoin and never touch it and store it in a hard wallet, and you probably want to do that with 5 to 10% of your total net worth. And it really doesn't matter what price you buy that Bitcoin at, just buy it at different prices and never touch it. So that 5 to 10% is basically you gambling on not dying in the next 5 to 10 years. And then from there you can decide to buy, this is just my advice, to buy more or less Bitcoin or to trade it, and then add to your HODL position over time. Permissionless transfer of Bitcoin. No one can stop you from direct exchange with another peer. The cost of these transactions is extremely low when comparing it to gold. The price of moving gold across the globe requires security and trust, and it's heavy and not cheap, and it needs protected. Moving gold, it's just primitive compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's, it's through the network, it's instant. Well, it takes about an hour to go through the verification process, but moving gold is ridiculous. The price of moving Bitcoin across the globe will vary, but it's always going to be far cheaper and efficient. And the amounts of Bitcoin you can move for very cheap compared to the large amounts of gold that would be very expensive. Your Bitcoin private keys are stored in your brain, and the government cannot yet hack your brain. I only say that because anything's freaking possible in a dream. No one can keep you from sending money to anyone in the world instantly at very minimal cost. No documents or questions are asked when sending money. No one controls this network. No single individual is in charge of this network. This is very similar to how the internet is currently operating. This is the money of the decentralized internet. So we can communicate information as I'm doing now for free, decentralized, and the government can't stop us. No one can stop us from doing this. And this is also now what we can do with money. It's beautiful. So now we can actually decentralize everything in our lives. Points of decentralization in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not controlled by governments, separation of money and state, completely global without borders, no banks or corporations, no confusion on its future operation, direct peer-to-peer transfer without intermediaries or borders. If you want to buy something, if you want to send money to someone, you have to go through an intermediary like MoneyGram or Western Union. You have to pay costs. If you want to spend money on something, and the bank can simply say no. It's ridiculous that we can't transfer from person to person without government's involvement. It's time we grow up and remove this childish intermediary that keeps us from doing whatever we want. We only have the illusion of time, and it's a dream that has time, and I'm really, really thankful for time, and I don't want intermediaries. This is why I don't entertain marriage. It's the same thing. It's all money making. Divorce, it's just money making. Funerals, it's money making. It's just, they're involved in every aspect of our freaking lives. It's ridiculous. We can break free of it. It's just, it's sad. It's just endless trickery. But we come into the world completely open, receptive, and trusting. We have no reason not to, and we got brainwashed. It's that plain and simple. I got brainwashed. I admit it, and I deprogrammed that brainwashing. Blockchain. The blockchain is an open online ledger of Bitcoin transactions. It is available for public viewing and cannot be erased, forged, or tampered with. The transactions are placed in the blockchain in order of time, and each block holds 1 megabyte of information. Once the block is filled and verified, a new block gets created. This happens roughly every 10 minutes by design. Bitcoin miners receive a block reward for finalizing a block. This reward is paid in a portion of Bitcoin. Understanding blockchain is not complicated, but scammers pretend it is more than it is. Government is scamming blockchain. Companies are scamming blockchain. They're attaching to this concept of blockchain. Bitcoin is blockchain because of the 1 megabyte blocks, because of the decentralization because of those 1 megabyte blocks. This is what no one is grasping. Every other blockchain idea, it's just another centralized scam wasting computing power and adding blockchain, and they're not even doing the projects. It's completely scams. And when government pretends to come down on these scams, even though they're guilty of their own, I'm sure. The Facebook coin that they're pretending will come out, I don't even believe it will come out. XRP, banks, those coins weren't even mined. They're just a billion pre-mined coins, and it's just a huge scam. It's pathetic. The term blockchain has been abused throughout the media and Bitcoin hype. Private companies and the media have started to use the word blockchain instead of Bitcoin in order to scam projects and gain investors. Every altcoin is guilty of doing this. Do not let the misuse of the word. They've tricked bureaucratic workers into believing this blockchain idea and that it has any value. It doesn't. It only has value as Bitcoin with the 1 megabyte blocks. This needs to be understood so your money doesn't go into these scams. Blockchain is an expensive technology to use, and using it for non-decentralized projects is a waste of energy. The phrase that got taken to all government workers and followers is blockchain is the future. This has so many residing under a completely fictional assumption. Blockchain is Bitcoin, and any other use of it has far proven to be a waste of money and computing power. If we want to put some secondary layer on top of Bitcoin, we can, but the original foundation of Bitcoin will remain intact. That's why the book is called The Bitcoin Standard. It's like putting second layers on top of gold. We can put Visa and MasterCard on top of Bitcoin. We can put the Lightning Network on top of Bitcoin. Bitcoin can only do 500,000 transactions a day. We need to understand that. It's not going to replace Visa and MasterCard. The fact that it's ever even being spoken of just shows how misguided the news is, or how the news is intentionally misguiding you. It's not the way it works. It's just a store of value. It's like gold. This open ledger makes it reliable for any crime involving a victim that has taken place to get investigated. Since everything is in the open ledger and trusting, it really shouldn't get looked at unless there's a crime involving a victim. If people use it to buy drugs and they want to continue playing this ridiculous drug war game, then sure, they can catch you, but they can also catch you through banking as well, or anything else. So if you want to avoid that, then you have to find roundabout ways, because Bitcoin is, there's trust in the blockchain in that it's open to everyone. And that way, there's nothing happening behind closed doors as there is in the current system, obviously. Money. The future promise of value is the essence of money. Money is not the thing of value, it is the thing exchanged for the thing of value in which you seek. It is an intermediary of exchange for something of perceived value. This is why a scarce form of money will always operate better in the long term. Bitcoin is a digital form of money entirely different from the current options. It is not recorded in a database of a company or a debt owed to a central bank, and has not been issued by a single individual or a group of individuals. It is a form of digital money that has been produced through extremely complex computation and mathematical algorithms. This is replacing central banking. These cities full of banks are no longer useful, because the new banks are going to be the people that have Bitcoin. It's just the way it works. And if these central banks want to continue to exist in the coming decades, they're going to have to buy up some Bitcoin. I feel that's going to be happening when the price is going to be awfully high. Or they're secretly buying it now, which I imagine is probably happening. It is recorded simultaneously to every computer on the network. It is validated independently by every participating computer. It cannot be forged, counterfeited, censored, seized, or frozen. It can be transmitted anywhere in the world as a scarce piece of information. A money form works if people believe in it and agree upon its perceived value. A money form fades away if a better form of money comes along and the masses make the switch. Over time, money has become less physical and more abstract, gold to paper to digital. The US dollar is controlled by a central authority and supply increases as needed to obtain government's objectives. This large degree of trust, it's laziness on the government's part as well. They're just, we need more money. Oh yeah, can I just go get it printed? It's just lazy. It's hard to look to the future when money is working inflationary. It's hard to even think about the future, even if you're the one in control of that inflation. This large degree of trust has been abused, can now be set aside for a better alternative that works off verification, not trust. Gold is the soundest form of money currently, but when Bitcoin halves its supply growth in May of 2020, Bitcoin will overtake gold. Bitcoin and gold are both sound forms of money. Sound money does not increase in money in supply much or at all over time. Deflationary. Unsound money is controlled by a central authority. The supply increases as needed to obtain central authority's objective. Inflationary. Time preference, and the person holding the money will naturally vary depending on the soundness of the money. So our time preference, as Saif says in his book, is how much we're looking to the future. If we have a high time preference or a low time preference. So if we're looking to the future, we're going to think more about saving for our future self. And if we're not, then we're going to be immediately spending, which will burden our future self. And me being here, currently having no money, is an example of someone that habitually, as a pattern, burdens his future self. So yeah, I think I'm not the only person that is under this pattern as of living paycheck to paycheck and fighting and scraping for dollars. Simplify your way of living. Like, get rid of the monthly bills. Like, that's what I did, and it lowered the stress. There was a time in my life where I had to make $4 or $5 grand a month just to pay my bills, and now my bills are essentially nothing. You don't have to waste money in all this nonsense, like houses and nice cars and lawns. Like, you can live cheaply and humbly and live a much better life, because now you can enjoy time instead of being a slave to that money. A currency that inflates over time is less likely to be saved, and a currency that holds its value, increases its supply over time, is likely to be saved. Bitcoin's value is not controlled or manipulated. Free market trade will decide the value. So let the markets decide. It's the way the game's going to be played. Money was never real. If you weren't involved in the markets before, then it's time to start learning, because it's really one of the only games in town. It's basically going to come down to gambling, which is trading, computer science, computer programming, and travel, tourism. That's basically the future. All the other jobs are pretty much going to get eaten up by machines. This is not to say big money players cannot move the market, but that is not manipulation. Manipulation is when big money players conspire together and use media to persuade the masses. So yes, manipulation is taking place, especially in markets, especially in these Ponzi schemes that we've been sold, these Roth IRAs and these Social Security, all this nonsense that clearly can't continue with longevity. Because, you know, government's going to be facing this attack from Bitcoin as well. You know, something they weren't planned to have to deal with. As market cap increases, this type of gameplay will decrease. So basically, as more people move into Bitcoin, the volatility will decrease because the liquidity will increase. Digital scarcity. Digital scarcity has not been an option until Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the only actual scarce asset and happens to be digital. Bitcoin is the best performing asset because of the actual scarcity. Scarcity, it's the second reason Bitcoin matters more than anything. There's only going to be so many. There's only going to be 21 million, and there's more than 21 million millionaires currently in the world. So if each millionaire doesn't get a hold of a whole Bitcoin, they're no longer going to be a millionaire. Bitcoin wins in the long run. There's about $80 trillion in the world currently, but it's actually going to be a lot higher than that. So, like, Bitcoin's value can get very, 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 very high. And getting left behind, less than 1% of people currently own Bitcoin or have ever owned Bitcoin. So this is just the beginning stages. So don't overinvest, don't underinvest. You know, find your happy medium, figure it out, learn about it. I want to be talking about if I thought it had really any chance of failure. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm just a dude sharing his vantage point directly without the confines of belief in my way. So I'd like to think that I see very clearly, and if I'm seeing something wrong, then please tell me so I can fix it. I'm not going to read all about scarcity, but FOMO, yes, fear of missing out. There's new words, new context, and that's my example of all context is false, but when we have new ideas, we literally have to create new words to communicate it. Context is great for communication between people, but buying into that context as truth is a fool's errand. So FOMO, fear of missing out, that is ingrained in the human greed. Don't underestimate it. When that's taking place, this price can skyrocket fast. And then the opposite direction, the sell-offs. Don't be tricked into selling your coins. Figure out why it's going down. It's not going down because Bitcoin's failing. It's going down because people got overinvested. People bought at the wrong times. People bought for the wrong reasons. People aren't holding. Bitcoin will continue to go on and succeed. The foundation is people that understand what it is and how it works, and they don't want to give up their Bitcoins. That's that's how it is. They've already made shitloads of money. There's no reason for them to want to sell their coins, unless they need to. And, government doesn't have a ton of coins, but they do have a ton of money, so they can move the market in short-term spurts, but they can't kill the foundation, the intrinsic value of Bitcoin, because those are the people with the massive amounts of coins. But it's still a way better distribution of wealth, and it's systematically distributed through infinite consciousness to those specific people. And I would trust that, because you kind of have to. Trading Bitcoin. Do not day trade unless FOMO is involved. The algorithm bots will chop your money apart. I stared at charts for like 2 years, just staring at charts. It's super interesting to watch people, machines, money at work, how it all works, the volatility, the swings, the support, the resistance, drawing the triangles, horizontal, like all the options, all the stuff, technical stuff. I follow Tone Vays. He's the main person I follow on YouTube. He's crushing it. He's just really an awesome dude. Putting in lots of time, traveling the world, talking to everybody. Yeah, he's gained a lot of respect over the last year or so. And he shares his form of trading. So he's a YouTuber you definitely want to be following and paying attention to. And as well as Twitter, you want to siphon through all the bullshitters. Tone communicates with the people that aren't bullshitters. He also confronts the people that are bullshitters, and he's getting a lot better at talking to them and standing up to them and saying how it is. Playing nice isn't going to work. I mean, these are schemes, and these people's minds are powerful, and they need to be going towards something more productive than money-making scams. So that's a little bit about trading, some bullet points. I'm not going to get into that right now. This video has already been very long. Store of value. Investing in a scarce asset is a tricky business considering there is not one physically scarce asset. So, gold, there's a massive amount of reserves. So even though they're producing, I forget how many tons of it per year, since there's so much in reserves, it has a low stock to flow ratio, but there's just such a massive amount. It's just not really logical to be used for that reason. And then the other metals all kind of like fell on the coattails of gold, and they're pretty much useless because they can just be produced in mass amounts. They don't do anything. I mean, all the commodities, all the stuff they said is scarce, it's not actually scarce. We barely dug into the Earth's crust, and we can basically produce it on demand as price increases, production increases. And the reserves of every scarce asset has increased. Oil is a very good example. Everything has gone up. Production, reserves, everything. We're not running out of any of these raw materials. We can't use them as a store of value. It's not going to work. Yeah, and you can learn about all that on your own. Individual sovereignty. A lot of this is directly out of Safe's book. I'm sure he doesn't really care. I didn't footnote it or anything, but I'm saying it. And giving credit and giving blame to everybody and trying to transfer information, it's not really about that. It's about the whole and what matters. These people are good people, and they don't really care about publicity and that sort of thing. Every owner of Bitcoin achieves a degree of economic freedom, which was never possible prior to the invention of Bitcoin. Bitcoin is permissionless, and anyone can use it. Like, you don't need permission to send or receive Bitcoin. You want to send or receive dollars, you need government permission. You need central bank permission. This is permissionless. It has global access to a sovereign-based money, meaning every currency converts into Bitcoin. Individuals now have the choice to free themselves of the financial clout of governments they live under. The new form of information technology will destroy the capacity of the state to force citizens to pay more for its services than they wish, taxes. Microprocessors will subvert and destroy the nation state. The digital revolution will destroy the power of the modern state over the citizens, reduce the significance of the nation state as an organizing unit, and give individuals the unprecedented power and sovereignty over their own lives. Kind of cool. The transfer of money was the final piece in the puzzle of digitalization that has been missing, and Bitcoin fills the void. Bitcoin will go a long way in correcting the imbalance of power that emerged over the last century when people became utterly reliant on government money for survival. Bitcoin and cryptography in general are defensive technologies that make the cost of defending property and information far lower than the cost of attacking it. Reverse brainwashing. My goal is to ease my readers into this new paradigm of how we can view money. Our defenses to the old system of money are ingrained hard within our consciousness, and admitting we have been brainwashed or fooled into misunderstanding of money is step one. Defense is much easier way out of dealing with the topic than Defense is an easier way of dealing with the topic of fear than diving directly into that topic. We have all been brainwashed to some degree on how money works. The term brainwashing can cause discomfort, but it is really just our belief system on what we think we see. Like, what we think and believe we see may not actually be what reality is. It's just what we think and believe. And that's what I mean by everyone's living their own independent reality. So everyone's seeing life through their own belief filters. And everyone's are different, and that's what makes every single person and experience unique. And if we want people to describe what they see, then honesty is going to have to be the new name of the game. Like, we can't constantly be dishonest about what we see and feel. There's no reason for it, other than we're scared. Instead of believing what we think, we can just open our eyes and see without those filters. Rather than bickering who is more or less brainwashed, we must first admit that we lie somewhere on the spectrum and prefer to check in on our own misunderstanding of money. If this sounds a bit harsh, then realize that this information is not about sugarcoating a harsh reality, but waking up to the increasingly imbalanced state of the financial system. Simply put, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That's the current thing we're in. That's the current game we're in. That's how the Ponzi scheme works. That's how the pyramid of debt works. That's how the government inflationary system works. That's how slavery operates. It's disguised slavery, for lack of a better word. And middle class are the ones falling for it hardest. Each of us as individuals must see the problem clearly to transfer our awareness into the solution over time. This means we do not defend the current system because it currently favors our bank account. Money is what people choose as money, and it is highly likely to move into the soundest form of money over time. We have to look at the whole picture and ignore our small speck of color in the entire painting. We need to tear down national borders and look through the lens of a worldview and global economics. It does not matter if you have a bank account full of dollars or are living paycheck to paycheck in order to survive. The amount of mental energy needed to understand this new money is an internal war for all of us. Then there's some information about nodes, future. The clear-cut option for the future of money is here for the taking, and I am excited to share what I've learned so far. My favorite saying of all time is, learn to kill the teacher. I want people thinking for themselves and not coming to me for the next band-aid of clarity. I am providing this for no cost, and I'm excited to transfer information to good, hard-working people. I also encourage you to remain productive for dollars and slowly move those dollars into bitcoins. Trying to get rich off Bitcoin will probably work, but will leave you feeling empty inside because you lack productivity. Gratitude is the thing we are all chasing, whether we know it or not. And our subconscious mind will always overpower our illusion of free will in order to diffuse our confines. In other words, truth is king. Fear and gratitude Those are the two states a mind can operate in. As fear moves out, gratitude moves in. Fear is basically the illusion of control, and believing that illusion, and then the more you surrender that illusion, the more you see consciousness is controlling everything, and consciousness is truth, and gratitude is what we get as fear moves out, and we shed our baggage and our confines, our artificial barriers to reality. Make it a game to get as many Bitcoins as you possibly can, and that includes maintaining your role in life. This is just a suggestion, but always follow your excitement without allowing that excitement to blind you. Good luck, and enjoy the natural unraveling of government money. This is going to happen with or without you on board. One petty vote hardly matters, but the increasing of these votes over time is what will make the change. Price of scarce assets is the dictator of the voting, and the increase in the price will be jaw-dropping. Sharing information with loved ones and uniting consciousness is the awesome game we can play. The printing press can finally get turned off. The future is coming on. Are you ready? And then I give a warning about altcoins and how scammy they are, and how there's so many, and how they have a large amount of the market cap, and how government can come down on the ICOs and the exchanges and everything that's happened so far, and be very, very careful buying Bitcoins at high price levels. Have patience in this game. Realize if you're investing in Bitcoin, you're going to make a lot of money, and you're getting that money for nothing. So don't be driven by greed or anything. There's no reason for it. One Bitcoin is a lot. Money is not evil, but our emotional entanglement with it appears to be. Truth is king. Much information I have written came from this amazing book. The man who wrote this book is a Bitcoin maximalist and has managed to put all of it into understandable context. I'm grateful for his efforts, and I'm excited to share what he has manifested. Please share this information and book with your loved ones, and take your time in understanding as many details as you can. Thank you for your time. So that's my my writing on it, and yeah, that's just that's my vantage point. Check it out for yourself. Do what you need to do. Thank you so much for listening. And hour and a half, that should be good for the opening Bitcoin video. I'll probably do a video. I like talking about price and my price predictions. I spend a lot of time staring at charts and trading. I might do something where I have an imaginary $1 million and invest it, and how I would plan to invest if I had $1 million. It's all make-believe anyways, so whether I have the dollars or not, it's just it's for fun. That's about it. Adios.